Now, let's talk here with you, Bronwyn, about what happened in the New South Wales Parliament in the past couple of days. To me, it's always a bad thing when Labor, Liberal and the Greens get together on energy or environment policy, but that's exactly what took place in New South Wales. Mark Latham did his darndest to try to get on top of this, to try to amend it, and he fought as hard as he could for about 30 hours in the Parliament, but when the fix is in, the fix is in. And in part that's because of the dealings of the left wing of the Liberal Party and its leader, Matt Kean, who just also happens to be the Environment Minister in New South Wales. Here's what he said.
Well, I'm not going to get into his wacky maths. This is about cheaper energy, this is about more investment, and this is about jobs for the bush. So while Barnaby Joyce wants to line up with the big energy companies that want to protect their super profits, I'm lining up with the mums and dads and the businesses of New South Wales that want to see some of the cheapest electricity in the world. And that's exactly what this plan will deliver.
Just write down these two words, Sunrise Foundation. Underline it. We might talk about that in the coming weeks' time if you want to talk about big money. Mark Latham, the man who tried to fight it, this is what he said.
It's got all the hallmarks of crony capitalism. Matt Kean, this Hornsby accountant, thinks he can pick winners in the energy sector. The bill had embedded in it a new electricity tax in New South Wales because it's open now for the government to levy from electricity distributors money to pay for the renewables, and that levy on the distributors goes straight on the consumer electricity bill. So prices will be going up.
So, Bronwyn, as always, those that are pro-renewables say, oh, we're trying to deliver cheaper energy. The only problem is you have to build billions of dollars worth of infrastructure to actually get to that point, and then you have to have a storage mechanism for it, which doesn't actually exist anywhere in the world. But, of course, to point either of these out is heresy.
Well, the first thing I'll say is hooray for Mark Latham, and that he had the stamina and the courage to show the bill for what it is. Now, Matt Kean is the leader of the left faction. He is the chairman of the formal left faction, and indeed you could call Matt Kean a troubled soul in that he's in the wrong party, more socialist than anyway true liberal. But the bottom line is that he controls the numbers which can determine the fate of Gladys Berejiklian. And as such, he was behind pushing this bill. But the thing that was really worrying, if you look at another piece of legislation that suffered the same sort of backing from the Greens and Liberal being together, and that was the euthanasia bill, the abortion bill. That was dealt with, and the appalling debate that we saw there that would allow late-term abortions and that no amendments were permitted that would prevent that. So it is a very worrying scene for me and for others who believe in free enterprise and believe in individualism to see such a piece of legislation being forced through when it's against the national policy. So I am very concerned about the power that Matt Kean exercises through the faction that he chairs. There has been developed almost a party within a party which is pro-renewables at the expense of everything else. Now, nobody's denying that there's a place for renewable energy, but the fact of the matter is that 80% of our energy, of our electricity, comes from coal-fired power stations. And he wants to get rid of gas and coal in 15 years. It's a nonsense. Blackouts would be inevitable. I've been in countries where there's not enough electricity, where brownouts, or as they're called in other countries, in fact mean that the rich and powerful keep the power, and the poor and the ordinary folk, they have to do without. And that is exactly the sort of thing that this legislation is headed for, and it gives me a great deal of concern.